Good afternoon, morning, daytime, whenever you're watching this, everybody. Welcome to this week's Writers Chat. We are so glad to see so many of our friends in the chat and here on screen today. And thank you for those of you that are watching the replay too and being with us today. And this is where we like to get together as writers and talk about writing, all things writing, for writers and by writers. And we got really a special fun topic today and special guest. Before we get started, just one little note. If you're watching the replay, there's going to be a couple of moments in the replay that we're going to pause the recording because Patricia might be sharing something that's a little bit more personal and we don't want to put that out on YouTube, but as an example, but she will give a summary of it so you don't miss the detail. You just won't actually see that part. So it might be, you'll see a couple of places on that on the replay, but you'll get all the essentials of today's topic. So I'm glad to see everybody today and welcome to all my co-hosts here. And I'm going to turn it over to our co-host, Melissa, who will introduce Patricia and our topic today for discussion. So Melissa, take it away.
Hi, everybody. And it's fun to have Patricia back again. You know, if you've watched some of our past recordings, you know, she's been on to talk about poetry and so many other fun topics, and she always has a wealth of information to present. So for those who don't know, Patricia Tiffany Morris discovered the art of bullet journaling on Pinterest as a new writer, searching for a place to track goals, events, and writing opportunities. Dot journals inspired her to combine creativity and color with mindful organizing. Placing first in poetry with Serious Writer's Blue Seal Award and second in Word Weaver's Tapestry Awards inspired her to add a submission chart to her planner, and tracking critiques, brainstorming project lists, scribbling book review reminders, and scheduling blocks of time to write filled her bullet journal pages. When Patricia discovered digital art and set aside traditional bullet journaling, she designed specialty writing pages for a future publication of a huge dot journal for writers, and that goal is still brewing. This year, she resumed paper planning and adores Prismacolor pencils to practice mindfulness in the space between projects. Patricia self-published an ongoing collection of creative journals on KDP called Journaling Scribbles. And the most rewarding experience arose when helping others with technology or learning lessons when technology doesn't work as expected, as well as making time to teach and help others. She still finds Twitter quirky, but might finish her book, One Split Time Novel, which she placed first at BRMCWC and ACFWVA. And that is if she stops working on books 2 through 4. Patricia also works on children's stories, illustrations, custom artwork, and devotions in between sleep and Zoom meetings. And today she is going to talk to us about bullet journal creation for writers and how you can use that to organize your writing life. And so I'm excited to hear about this topic today, Patricia.
Thanks, Melissa. I am going to share my screen here. And
while you share, I'm going to go off screen. I think a couple of others of us will as well, so that it's less distracting.
And we'll come back when you're done.
So now you can see my screen there.
Yes.
Okay, good. Zoom is doing just a little different today, so we'll hope this throws through there. Do you see? Yes. Okay. As writers and creatives, we balance a plethora of projects, activities, deadlines, and connections. Overwhelm quickly sets in. We push deadlines ahead and chase the urgent, telling ourselves one more day won't matter. They'll understand. And I know I have an email from my editor somewhere in Google. When was I supposed to meet in Zoom? I'll just write remember on the sticky note. But then when the time comes to locate details, all we can remember is the color of that sticky note. As writers and creatives, we can use this tool called bullet journaling. In the next few slides, I'm going to quickly explain what bullet journaling is. And as I shuffle my papers here, show you some examples of bullet journaling, and then I'm going to show you some techniques that I like to use specific for some writer pages. Bullet journaling stores a kind of roadmap for my writing life and allows me the freedom to organize the pages the best way for my changing schedule. I've tried desk calendars, pocket planners, happy planners, and a lot of variety of planners. But when I discovered bullet journaling in 2018, the flexibility and management, ability to manage provided this framework for getting where I needed to go. And isn't that what a roadmap should do? This page has the words, planning to glorify God in all I do, pray always. And that space allows me to handwrite reminders throughout the year, the way that I can mark the year, the dates, the week numbers, and all the other details that you have in a traditional planner. But what about the scribbled bits of paper and pieces and ever-growing stacks in those to sort piles? As writers, we need a simple setup to maintain and manage. These are 3 goals that I looked at when I tried to sort through all the different types of planners they are. I want productivity. I want to increase that. I want to make room for mindfulness, and so that I have time to rest and think about the things I'm planning. And then I want a place for creativity, to place to color or doodle and just pray about some of the activities that are coming up in the next week. Bullet journaling allows us to draw straight lines or boxes because there are these small little dots on the page in a regular spaced grid. Journals come in soft cover or hardback, and 2 of my favorite journals are the grid journal and the dot journal from Minimalism. And I have a couple links on my website that are affiliate links if you want to check them out. They also come in ruled and plain for sketching. Broad tip markers allow you to put headers on that have a little contrast with the thinner lines. You can add thicker lines around your outside boxes and thinner on the inside. And you can draw lettering over various heights by just using the distance between 2 dots or 3 dots or so on. So when you have a full page spread, you can decide how much embellishment to put on, little or more. And you'll notice I have pencil kind of marked in the top where that's going to be my header, where it says year in color. Here are a few of the tools that I use. And I'm going to put together a resource sheet that has some of these tools that I like put together in a handout. So when we're tempted to think that bullet journaling looks too complicated, you're not artsy enough, take a look at the type of things that the bullet journaling can put together for you that maybe a regular calendar might not have. But here's the problem. These are the common goals or issues that we all have. We all have schedules to manage. We all need plan to write and create content. And we have more stress than ever before our previous generations. And we have this wide variety of tools and digital tools, but we rarely find time to learn how to use them. If we can master this art of mapping our writing lives as our primary goal, we can experience greater productivity and manage a wider variety of projects. A secondary goal would be to maintain this system with some sort of consistency and follow through, and realizing that bullet journaling is incredibly flexible. Now let's look at some tools. All tools, all pens that you would want to use in a bullet journal would need to be bleed proof and acid free, meaning they'll stay for a long period of time, fade proof so your black inks don't fade, and permanent if you're going to use colored pencil and some other fun watercolor and such throughout your pages. You can use chalk-like pens, thin or medium ink pens, colored pens, gel pens, and I like a white gel pen on top of a black marked kind of box, and I'll show you those later. And I use a mechanical pencil to put some of the base, like just the marking the spots where I'm going to put boxes and titles and such, because you don't even have to erase it if you write light enough. And then I love finding a broad tip marker that I've got that I can create 3 different line weights with. Choose a color palette to style your journal with color, or add a theme to one page or monthly or just sporadically. So if you choose very few different header styles, either an outline that you color in or just outline with a couple different line weights, you can come in there and have a lot less decisions to make when you're actually doing the planning. So planning ahead in the back of my journal, I'll put some ideas for headers, and then I'll choose 2 or 3 for a season, 6 months or a year, and then that makes that choice and less overwhelm. Text options, you can do white on black, black on white, or black on watercolor or colors, or you can do color pencil around your black ink. Using 2 different pen widths creates a simple, easy way to repeat the header. Adding extra thin lines, adding the scribbles around the edge, outlining with a thin pen on top of a thicker pen, and then you'll see where the white gel pen is on top for the week numbers and the year. And then at the very bottom of this slide, a little bit later, I've got one that shows just some words that I added across the edges. So I don't start out with one big page and color it all in one setting. This is a project that I like to do where I'll choose the word for the year that many of you writers do, and then I'll come and put some common words to that. I'll add a scripture around the words, and I'll just keep filling it in over time, adding little color here and there until I fill that page, and then I'll start a new one. The mechanical pencil with that very thin graphite, you can see that little snippets of it in right here, and I just didn't even bother to erase it. This is my planning sketching for the pages that I create. And then once I figure out where I want a few pages, you'll notice I'll cross right out, scribble through something that I changed, and instead of rewriting it, I'll just do an arrow. And then once I'm sure that's where those pages are, I've got a title either in pencil or some header on that page, then I'll write it over here in a page that shows where things are. So if I want to go back to poetry notes, I'm going to go to pages 26 to 29 this particular year. This particular activity of drawing thumbnails and doing these layouts as you go throughout the year, you want to be careful you don't get too far ahead, because you may have a project, for example, like Word Weavers, I'm in 4 different critique groups, so I thought I should put those 4 different pages and then put the critiques or the submissions that I send to each one of those, because some of them do overlap. And the next page I'm going to be working on in August will be putting blog posts together. The other thing I do is I create templates as well as use a page that's already finished to just lay it over there, and I'm not recreating the wheel. I am laying the page over, I'm taking a pencil, and I'm just marking those same or similar dots. And this is in real time, so I've got quite a few time lapse, but this is fairly quick once you've got one done, and you can just do your marks through. And I'm gonna go ahead and click through that. If you are interested in watching the longer version of that to see how templates are made, we can look at that later. So I'm gonna stop for questions. Are there any questions up to this point?
We were doing a little bit talking about erasable pens. Do those work, or do you find they fade or they bleed? What do you think of that? A lot of us like those erasable pens. What do you think?
Yeah, you know, I am going for the least amount of, I would say, work to, I don't like eraser bits. So going for something that was really light, I didn't want to have to go back and erase. The other thing with erasing on top of ink is sometimes that ink smears just a little bit, depending on what tool you use. The large headers, the word March here, that doesn't smear at all. That's a fabric marker that I bought for creating t-shirts with my kids, but now I'm using it in the bullet journal, and that doesn't smear. But this thinner pen that says notes, sometimes that smears if I go try and erase the lettering behind there. So you just have to test the tools out with that erasable pen and see what happens.
The erasable pens will over time actually just fade as well. And so
that's cool.
Yeah, well, it's cool if you want it to be cool. I used erasable pens in my journal once, and I went back and I looked, and the ink had kind of bled into the page, and they got really hard to read. And so I was a little bit dismayed because that was my journal and I didn't want those pages to go. So that's something to keep in mind if you want to make sure that your words stay on the page. And I was commenting in the chat that a pigment ink sits on the top of the page instead of bleeding in. And so pigment ink is, that's usually what they use for like archival quality pens. So those are really good to look for. I personally like the Sakura Micron pens for that. But it's kind of interesting. There's all different variety of pens. Anyway, just wanted to add that on the recording as well as in the chat.
There's Faber-Castell, Zig, and Pitt pens that are pretty good. And there's some foodie pens that are Japanese made that are just really, really good for bullet journaling. And again, I've got links on my one of my website pages that has some of those tools and those supplies that I like and recommend. And
thanks to Melissa for sharing all your links. She's been adding those off and on.
Very good.
Links. So they're in the chat, and we will be sure the chat's shared on our members page later, so you can go back and get them if you're not getting them now.
Absolutely. And even just to look and see that page just shows some of the things that some of the products I like, iPads and digital art and all of that stuff I've got there, alcohol inks. Just if you're interested in those type of projects, just go see what things I like. Any other questions? I saw somebody made a note.
I think we may have them taken care of for right now.
Okay. All right, so the next section, we're going to brainstorm some ideas, and I've got a pen here. So as you look through some of these ideas, if you've got an idea that's not here, we're going to make the list a little bit bigger, and then I'll create that handout with these different ideas. So brainstorming writers page spread ideas, there's a little overlap with some of the pages that are common, like your calendar and your work in progress or your book page, your monthly, weekly, daily lists. Those are all common, whether you're writing or not. But fiction pages, if you write fictions, you could plot story ideas, character names and traits, and just plop a page in anywhere in the year that you want to start doing those things. What other ideas do you have?
Well, I'm curious on what do you put like on your word of the year? I mean, do you just flush out ideas, or what do you just what is
So,
to you, or what do you
so the
think?
word for the year I use more as if that first picture you saw with the word rest, that is my word for this year. I am in way too many projects. I'm in way too many groups. I think I have 150 Facebook groups, and I am finding that overwhelmed this year. So that was the word I claimed. So then I put other words beside it, like focus. I put calm. I put things like make time for prayer. And I put all those in this sort of, it's not really a crossword puzzle, but just the words in different angles and shapes. And then I colored and kept adding more words. And then I added lines and embellishments and dots. And that becomes my word for the year.
Like a word cloud. You know how they used to do the word cloud?
Yes.
Yeah, or that
Absolutely.
a mind map. I would say I would add to that because I'm in a group that we discuss whatever our word of the year is like once a month and share it. So I would share. So I've been doing blog posts once a month, once every other month on my word of the year. And so maybe those blog post ideas would go on that page.
Awesome.
Yeah, just different things on that. Where do you put ideas? Future ideas for writers have ideas all the time for umpteen things. Do you narrow them down to character ideas, or I'm just sometimes you just get this general idea. You're not sure if it'll be a book or an article or a blog
Yes.
post. Where do you capture that?
So I have a few examples a little bit later of just some things that I've done, and I'll highlight those as well as you'll see that word of the year again in the slideshow a little bit later, and I'll point that out.
That'll be
Conferences,
great.
classes, I do a wide variety, just depends on the mood I'm in. Sometimes I'll make just a straight set of boxes, regular space boxes down the page. Sometimes I'll do a box, write information, then wait to do the next box because one information group of data might take a little more space than another. Classes I list, I've got one that I'm going to show you that's on Skillshare classes I've taken, and it's a sort of a mess, but it is a listing of sorts so I can remember which classes I've taken.
Brandy, Melissa, you got questions or something you want to add to her ABC here?
I love the idea of doing like character sketches and filling out their information, literally and figuratively. You know, if you're artistic enough, like you'd like to draw the characters as well as actually filling out their information for reference. And then research, not only, you know, maybe recording the specific things you research, but maybe sources that you've come across that you need for reference. That would be a good thing to add to a bullet journal, I think.
On something like that, it would be really helpful in my situation to remember where I put that. So sometimes I put it in a notebook, I've printed it. Sometimes it's in Scrivener, sometimes it's in Plotter, and sometimes it's in my notes app. So if I created a page that was research for a particular project, I would want to make a note of where that, so I'm not repeating that information in there, but just saying there's more, you know, go here for more.
It does organize you, doesn't it?
You know, it really does. And I missed this for about 1.5 years. I was going to put a slide up showing a digital calendar, and it lost the whole mindfulness and wellness and all this stuff that you can go in with your writing projects. I missed the scripture memory and all of this. I mean, I could have made it a task in a traditional digital planner, but it changed the way that I worked. And there would be days where I would go without looking at it or checking off the things because frankly, it just became a checklist of things to do.
Mm-hmm. And the creativity, you're showing us really how to bring in the creativity with this, which you don't get on digital as much on digital at all. I don't think you
correct
at all. Yeah.
And there's something therapeutic about writing on the page and adding your own artwork. It also sparks the creativity as a writer.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Here's this second list or a second page of additional ideas for planners. I use many of these ideas in the journaling scribbles notebooks that I created. For example, I created specific doodling pages with pre-drawn boxes and light gray backgrounds so you could just trace. I created scripture and quotes page that's just dots everywhere on the page that you can write your own, just like the word of the year page. Gratitude pages, all of those kind of things. And you can put those in anywhere you want if you use that visual table of contents idea and kind of keep track of where things are in your planner. It doesn't matter where they are as long as you've got sort of a map or a table of contents to go to find those. The flexibility is just marvelous. So here are some examples now of some page spreads. This one is one that I'm using for July. And if you'll notice, can you see my mouse?
Yep.
No?
Yes.
I can see us.
Okay, so underneath here, you can see the number of words that I'm tracking for NaNoWriMo. I'll put things that I want to, like regular events. See, there you are, WC. And you can just put what you want. So I'm planning for Nano to have a 4-day writing crunch. And I'm just getting some words just to say I wrote something every day this month. This word count goal is, I wrote 10K, but I actually put down 50K in Nano. And then I would edit 50 pages. So those are things I track. And then I like to keep the week number here. So when I go back to that main calendar page, I can look and see which week I'm in. Here are some different template types I've tried. I've tried one where I just list this one to me was not helpful at all. When I get to this point, when I started doing this in May, I only got down about half the page. This was not helpful. I thought every single day I was going to mark when I checked email and when I checked Instagram and when I posted on Pinterest. That tracking was too much. So I'm not doing this in future months.
Yeah, but it shows the value of trying something that may or may not work. Yeah, it does.
Absolutely. And if you're somebody who really likes to check off lists and you want that accountability to post every day or every third day, you can pre-write, add a little checkbox right here. Say, oops, I don't know if I can go back, can I? Previous. That's fun. I've never done that. I can go back if the paper comes uncrumpled. So you can make little boxes in here and say, I only want to do an Instagram post on Sundays. And so you can make a box there and then make a box on the next Sunday and make this work for you. January and April and May, I just decided, it's actually just that last week of May, I kind of had tagged on to April there, where it's 5 boxes rather than 4, and it depends on the month, or if you want to add a few extra little boxes here, you can figure. And then I fill in the spaces. This was Nano in April. And of course, these are the ones I took before I filled them all out. And sorry. Okay, sorry. I'm glad that's recorded. Okay. When you use your mouse on PowerPoint, just so you know, as you scroll through, it goes through your slide. So I won't do that again. But over here, there's places where you can just do any sort of category. You could have prayer notes. You could have writing projects. You could have critiques. You could have a brainstorming session. You could have chores from home, your character ideas. Any of that can be on the edges if you like. Or you could just measure this out and fill up your entire page with your month. So that is some monthly ideas. Any questions there? Any comments?
Catherine had a question, and I think it's probably true for all of us on that way, that we struggle to make some space for everything that our lives sometimes require for us every day, every week. And, it is hard to block some time for our writing goals and our things. I think this method could give us some of that, but, she she says, has that helped you? I guess, and the focus is sort of what her question is. Sometimes the day-to-day activities tend to disappear into leisure. She has to-do lists
Yes.
that always get to it. So can you maybe give us some reflection on that?
Yes, and then a few pages later, there's going to be some brainstorming dump pages when I feel like there's too many activities and I'm not sure I'm getting things done, when this sort of overview isn't enough. And I may spend the whole day in Skillshare learning classes and not know where the day went. This is very helpful for the quick overview and to also add a few appointments in. It's not so helpful to do, what you can't see right here is a page right beside it that is a brain dump page, and it's got some private information on it, so I didn't copy that. But that is more of a listing, and just, I may take random days. So I might take the 4th if I had a lot of stuff. And over on this other side, I would write July 4th. I wouldn't have 1st, 2nd, 3rd if I didn't need it, but I would just drop in the days that I need more space to do. And this is my favorite spread, where I can look at the overview. I can work on projects. If I know a few things, I'll just keep going on those. But if it feels overwhelming and I've got several things to do, I will take the rest of what goes on this day and add it underneath the header over here on this right side page. Best plan that works for me, and everybody will find your own way to organize those. You can see where here I've got writing night. Well, there was an opportunity to write in the evening, and then this was an all-day poetry writing marathon. And so I would just fill that day, and then all the other stuff gets put on. Here's July 17th, all the other stuff that went around that, and things like creating this PowerPoint and things like that are on that list for that particular day. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it helps you focus. And
Yes.
I always call putting some of those other things in the parking lot for a while. They're holding there, they're out in that
Yes.
parking lot. And once I get them written down someplace, but then I could set them aside and focus on at least an hour on what's the main priority. This helps you set priorities, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. So there's a little bit of close up to there. I've got a few things. Had a little scare at the ER. Little things like that you want to put in there. This was also a nice eye opener. I had a lot of people praying, and praise the Lord. Here is another word page of just putting as the Lord leads, as I'm going through my day, things that I want to remember. I've thrown a few stickers in from an old happy planner, recycling some things. And then I do this little doodling around here. But my word this year, or this particular year, was persevere. And so I had quite a bit of other words all around it. I do take time to occasionally grab a scripture verse that I've read, or in Katie Kaufman's My Artsy Tribe, we have exercises for hand lettering. And you'll notice how scribbly this is. It's not the point to worry about perfection. It's just to be meditating on the word. And so right now, I'm going to be showing a page or an example of how to do, maybe to track some of your submissions. And I have kind of a stoplight method of yellow is submitted, red is rejected, and green is that submission has been accepted for either publication or for a contest. So before we go into those, and then I will be showing also a page that I keep track of the various children's writing, poetry, fiction, and all the variety of writing that I do on another spreadsheet that's got some of my personal data that I don't want to put on the internet. So we'll go ahead and stop the recording and then turn it back on when we're done. The next pages just show a traditional bullet page, how I start, and I usually do vertical lines, one direction, and then I add the horizontal or vice versa. Instead of switching back and forth, it yields a little straighter lines if you struggle with how you're doing that. And I turn my book around depending on what's more comfortable to write those lines. Once that's done, then you can put your title in, and you can see here where on the word November, just outlining, and you can see where I've done the horizontal lines and the curves first, and then I'll go back and do the vertical. I find that just makes things look a little cleaner. Here is a metallic marker. Love those. They don't last very long in your bullet journals or on paper, but maybe it was the brand name. The white gel pen 10 point on top of black is my favorite default. I love that sort of chalkboard look. And so I'll use that over here on the far right as well. I'll put the days or some other words on those bits. But look right here where you can see 15 and a little sun sort of ghosting through there. What the black also does with the white on top is I made a mistake in counting my dates. So I just blacked over it. And now that's, of course, going to be 17 instead of 15. The black, anytime you have a mistake, just use that broad tip, color over it, and then plan to do the white on top. Perfect for those that feel like a whole page in your book is ruined and the whole book is ruined. Some other things, a key or a legend. Here's a close-up, adding just some goals and some lettering, playing with the pens and the different lettering style. And this is that square box bit. And then in the back of your bullet journal, test out your pens. This particular pen didn't work, and I'm really glad I didn't start in the page with that pen not working well. And then these are just some other marks. Here is the blog post plans that I want to organize. I hadn't figured out what this category was. It's probably going to both be writing, or maybe this is going to be the bullet journaling. But I wanted to have just 5 main categories on my website. Here I just use just little squares for decoration. This is the list, and this particular Skillshare one, I went backwards, but the Skillshare list of classes, that is like a brain dump. Here's another one, here's that year in review where I've put those words for the year, just listed some of them at the bottom, and then added a little quip over here at the edge. Over here, this was a mistake, so this wasn't planned, but it worked out to add that white gel on top. And again, down here too, I had a mistake where I was writing something and I misspelled the word. So I just went, I'm just going to put words right here. So the flexibility to do something like this, where in a regular planner, not as easy. Here's the other word of the year with the word rest and focus. And then I added a couple verses from Matthew that were particularly important for me at the beginning of the year. And I'm going to go through the next ones. This one's a brain dump. This is to answer Jean's question, like, what do you do when you've got all these things? Well, I made categories. This is my to-do category. This was online. This was when my website store, I needed to upload things for Christmas. Well, it didn't help to upload them in December. Nobody saw it, but that was my list. And then work in progress, book reviews, meetings, and I just made random categories. And this wasn't filled out overnight. It was throughout the month. I just kept adding to it of things I wanted to actually do. And then I would continue to cross through, circle things that need to go on to the next month, cross through things that never got done that I don't really care to move to the next month. And then here's an example of, for fiction writers, every Hallmark story ever, the protagonist, the goal, escapes, plans, falls in love, and elements of. And I just took several memes that were out there and combined them with the probably 100 Hallmark movies that my husband and I watched, and just thought that was a fun exercise. And then here's a plot generator with a character, situation, a prop, and a setting, and just thought this would be a fun short story exercise. And I just started listing a bunch of things. I used a plot generator to get a couple of these and actually situations. And then I wrote these on my own. And some of these were from various places, but that's something you can do in your bullet journal. And another dump page. This is a week page. Same idea, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, just left some space to do. Did a little more embellishing, coloring, book reviews that I had to do or that I wanted to do. And then from last week, this is super important, a section where you can write what from last week did I not do? And that would be these little arrows. And that is it.
Patricia, I just wanted to comment on your pages with all the drawings and colorings that just look absolutely wonderful. And, you know, we see them completed, but I have the distinct sense that those don't come about initially at the beginning, that those beautiful pages grow in their designs and their colors as you do that. Am I
Yes.
correct? So it's like, you
Yes.
know, we don't have to feel like overwhelmed. We could do that too, just
Absolutely.
add a little at a time. Is that right?
Yes. And you remember that page that, I don't know if you remember it's with all of this, but where it had the word of the year, and it started out with just the word rest. And then the next page had a little green under the word rest, and it had a few more words. And then the next page had a few more coloring bits, and the last one is full colored. That process, probably I spent 4 months off and on. And just when I needed a break from thinking, planning, whatever, I just took my pencils and started doodling.
And I also have to put in a marketing note because I think these are great things. You do something like this, it takes like 4 months or whatever to do something like this. And then at the end, you have this beautiful page that you can take a picture of and share it as a meme, put it on Pinterest and use it to generate attention for your writing. I know that you've done that, Patricia, and I think it's fantastic. But that's just something extra that you can do with these things that you've already created.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And just remember, when you're sharing stuff, you know, double check before you share it that there's nothing on there that would give the world your phone number or, you know, things like that.
Of course, yeah. But like your word pages, for example, are just fabulous. And you've gotten so many positive comments and feedback on them. People just love them.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, we have. Why don't you stop screen sharing and we'll get the 4 of us back online here. And then we've got just a few minutes. Oh, got to see, find you there. Yep. We've shared a lot of those. So this is, Patricia, this was great. This was, it made me want to go shopping for pens.
I always want to shop for pens. I just love pens. Yes.
What is, and this, by the way, is the time of year, you know, school supply time. A lot of sales going on. Look at them. I get pulled mine out. We do.
But use what you've got. You know, those pages that I did where you test those markers out, test the markers you've got. Many of them will work. And then you can just add a little bit to that as you have extra cash.
I like that idea and stuff. And I like the idea we don't have to do them all at once. This is a
absolutely
progress. And you've got great handwriting. I mean, you've been so creative in the lettering stuff. My handwriting is pretty doggone sloppy, you know, so on that. But if
use the back pages. Use the back pages to practice. Try a few different styles. I do not like script. I don't like the way my script looks. And I'll keep trying it and I'll keep practicing in the back and in different classes. But so I default to this straight up and down. And that's my architecture background of years and years and years of actually lettering. That was part, you know, a good 50% of my job as an architect was lettering.
Yeah. I like the ideas and I like the brain dump. You know, we talked a little bit about the brain dump about halfway through the recording, and I'll just share a quick experience and then we'll see if there's any other questions. Is that in a previous hat, when I took over an administrative post, there was so much junk left, open-ended stuff left done, and just writing it out, dumping everything down that had
Yes.
to be done without a date, without an order, but you categorized it as it, wrote it down. And I think that's a key secret too. But I just
I think
remember
it,
I had pages of a notebook filled with just the leftovers from my predecessor who
Yeah.
had left out things not done that had to do. It was such a relief just to capture that on the page.
absolutely.
Then from there, I said, okay, what's the first three most important things? And started, and then I slowly just chopped away. I remember it took me close to that first year, maybe even a year and a half to get through that page. But it was such a good thing to check things off and get things done.
It
And
is.
things did get done over time. Brandy brought a really good point up about that over time, on that. So this is great
Yeah.
practice on that. Why don't we invite everybody back on if they want to come on for any final questions or to thank Patricia. Melissa, do you have handy what we have next week? I do if you don't.
Well, I know Catherine's got a question. She has her hand up.
Okay, so Catherine, you want to ask your question real quick?
Be as brief as I can. When you have everything planned and your world is suddenly upset, family illness or whatever, then it's obvious your whole schedule has been thrown off. Do you have a plan B for that, or a backup plan to keep from going crazy, or trying to reorganize before you're ready?
With the bullet journaling and you just are writing in the book as you go, there would be a section where you could just say life happened and then pick it up when you're ready again. And there is no shame in just taking a full month and, going cross right through the page. I didn't do anything. Or even better is take that black marker, change the month and start wherever you are and change the dates. And you've got a page that's right where you are. I've done where I've split a page in half, where I had 1 month and then I got so crazy busy doing art things that I wasn't even following my schedule. So then I just took and wrote over top of letters and made a second month on that page.
You could also choose to do it weekly too and not go the whole month. If a weekly schedule works better for you, sometimes that works better for some people.
I quite often, if it's a busy week, I'll add a week right after the month, but I don't plan those ahead. I don't go week 1, week 2, week 3, because quite often, many of those, like you say, Catherine, something happens and there's nothing on the page. So I don't pre-make those very far in advance. And sometimes it's the second or third of the month before I go, oh, I need another page. And then I'll go back in and fill what I did the last few days. I like filling in what I did after the fact too.
Yeah.
So.
And like Brandy said, she's talked about getting her planner back out and starting this. The reality is life does happen. And sometimes I'm a journaler. I like to journal. And sometimes all of a sudden I figured out, hey, it's been 3 weeks since I've opened the journal. But I think the successful writer just keeps showing up, even if life's been interrupted. You just come back and show up again one day after other. And I think that's being faithful to our call as writers. And it's not always going to be, we want to be consistent, but it's not going to be perfect. What did you say, Brandy? You said imperfection is perfection or something like.
Well, yeah, because we can't get any more perfect than imperfection with our humanness. And so if you are exhibiting imperfection, that is the perfection for humans.
Yeah, that's right. So you just show up and start again is what you do. Patricia, this has been great.
Yes.
Melissa, while we're still on the recording, because it is noon, while we're still on the recording, you want to tell us everybody about next week? It's exciting.
Yeah, next week we're going to have Bethany Jett back, and she's going to talk to us about queries and proposals from the agent side of the desk. So from the perspective of the agent, what they're looking for and the do's and don'ts that you can keep in mind when you're putting submissions into an agent.
Yeah, and we're excited about that. As many of you do know, Bethany's just signed on as an agent at the Kyle Young agency. And she said she started noticing things almost from the beginning. She put the agent hat on versus as a writer on that. And she's going to share some of that insight that she's had almost immediately, the things that she has learned. And I think that's going to be very exciting, and it gives us an inside view to learn and grow on that way. Patricia, thank you again so
You're
much.
welcome. You're very welcome.
It's been inspirational, I would say. And we've really appreciated the time you put into the slides, and appreciated those of you that watched us live today, and those of you that take the time to write it or watch this online afterwards when we get it posted. And be sure to check out the links for what Patricia had on all that. And did you say you were going to share some other things, some resources, or is that on the links, Patricia?
Yes, I'm going to, in a handout, I'm going to have some links or some information, and then I'm going to take and drew just kind of a master list of those page ideas, taking
Great.
2 or 3 of those slides and just putting it in there.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that, and watch for that in the next couple of days, probably on a writer's chat member page. I think that would be a good place to post it. What, Patricia?
And right now I have posted a contest submission resource in the form of either a PDF or an Excel sheet. It's on my website, but I can put it in the group. But it's a whole bunch of different contests that I've gathered information from. I've taken the conferences out, but just left the contest in. So check that out as well.
A lot of resources. Thank you. Thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
thank you again for everybody being in it. We'll close out today on the recording version, and we hope to see you next week. And see you again, and keep writing, everybody. Keep writing. Thanks. Bye now.